Hello, my name is Keston Jones, and today I'm bringing to you a very important presentation in present-day America, and that is police violence and its impact on inducing trauma in communities of color. As someone who is from a community of color, who lives in a community of color, and in most cases works with clients from communities of color, I believe that this is a very important topic to bring to you today. And without further ado, let's move on. This quote. I feel like this is a very important quote to start today's presentation with, and it says, "For to be free is not merely to cast off one's chains, but to live in a way that respects and enhances freedom of others." And when we think about police violence, and when we think about the different things that are happening in present-day America, this figure right here, Colin Kaepernick, brought a lot of this to the forefront. So in thinking about the presentation, before we even get to that, I want to talk a little bit about myself. I often quote this revolutionary abolitionist, Frederick Douglass, and he says, as an advocate, he says, "It is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men." And when we think about this work, we have to focus on our children and what impact is police violence having on our children as we raise them in today's present day America. I am the founder of the Foundation for the Advancement and Rehabilitation of the Marginalized, which also known as the FARM. I'm also a fatherhood program director for SEO Family Services, in which I work mostly with incarcerated men who are involved in the criminal justice system, as well as men who are involved in the family court system. And when I think about this population and when we think about police violence, this is one of the main populations that are influenced by police violence. Right now, I'd like to go into the incidents that we have had over the last, I would say, 6 years in America. And one incident I want to bring to your attention is police officers fatally shoot a 12-year-old black teen in the playground. And when I just say these things, what comes to mind? Well, for many people in America, this young man comes to mind, Tamir Rice. Another incident, black woman found hung in her cell after being arrested for a traffic stop. Incident ruled a suicide. For many in America, we will not think about this. But for those impacted, we think about Sandra Bland. Another incident, police kill unarmed man after routine stop. Prior to the killing, you can hear one officer in the helicopter stating, "That looks like a bad dude." This individual is Terrence Crutcher. Next incident, police officer kills unarmed black man in his apartment. Botham Jean. And last but not least, police killed unarmed black teen in the backyard, in his grandmother's backyard. This individual is Stephon Clark. And we have hundreds of individuals just like this throughout the last 5, 6, 7 years. And some of the people is like, where did this come from? But for many others, we realize that with the advent of social media, with the advent of cameras, we are able to document these incidents, and that's why many of us are seeing them happen on a regular basis. So this presentation will be about that. Next up, and these are some of the faces that we see. Next up, we'll go into the outline of the presentation, which I just provided the intro to the presentation. We have approximately 5 sections to this presentation. Section 1, it's the origin of policing in America. We're going to talk about slave patrols. Also, we're going to talk about the primary function of slave patrols. Where did they originate from, and what were their primary functions? And last but not least, the transition to the modern day police force as we know it today. In section 2, we'll talk about defining police violence, Jim Crow, police violence defined, and last but not least, aspects of police brutality. Moving on into section 3, we'll be talking about collateral consequences for communities of color. What are those consequences that we're referring to when we talk about police violence? We'll talk about statistics related to police violence, increased mental health and other concerns, and last but not least, black communities' systematic disempowerment. In section 4, we'll be talking about acknowledging trauma. Because for some of us, we don't acknowledge that this communities of color who we're talking about today, have been the victim and victimized by trauma as it relates to police violence in America. So identifying the trauma, providing solutions for addressing the trauma, and last but not least, improve-based police responses. And this is not an indictment against the entire United States police force, because we understand that police officers are our neighbors, our families, and they're definitely needed in our communities. The concern is, how can we, as people who have lived experience, people who are involved in the issue, how can we provide some support, and how can we work with the communities of color along with police officers to make better responses for some of these incidents? And last but not least, we'll have an interview with a special guest of mine, Moses McBride, so please stay tuned for that. Thank you.